I want to work out an idea live here that I haven't actually thought of until just now.
Okay.
So play with me on this. Tell me how this lands with you. As I'm thinking about leadership, I'm realizing, so let me just say it this way. If we think about fame has been democratized, meaning that it used to be you had to be a movie star to have fame, or you had to be significant in some way. The system, the cultural system around us had to somehow prop you up and put you in the spotlight. Usually it was based on competence, but it could be based on other factors. And then we found, 20 years ago, we mentioned the Kardashians earlier, they figured out how to hack fame. This is before social media, but they figured out how to be famous for being famous and being wealthy. And they hacked into the system, and they got one level down in democratization of fame. And then social media enters the scene, and now anyone with an Instagram account and a YouTube channel can, in a sense, simulate what it's like to be a movie star. If you put the effort in, if you are attractive enough, if you've got the right message, if you position yourself, if you dress well, you can basically simulate fame or actually get really famous. Like there's famous YouTubers that have never been in a mainstream movie. They've never been on television, but they're more famous than maybe a movie star was 50 years ago. Like more people know of them globally. So we've seen in culture the democratization of everything, including fame. Like everything's being democratized. Everybody can start their own business. Everybody can publish their own book on Amazon. Everybody can publish their own music on SoundCloud or iTunes or whatever. Like we are able to do what only you could do with a major company before. Now we've got private companies taking space shuttles into space. I bet the next frontier will be democratization of space travel. Probably individuals could build their own spacecraft and go into space eventually, like with technology. So technology keeps democratizing everything. Except I bet you leadership can't be democratized. We want to. We have an affectation for it. We desire it so much because we see all the privilege and the benefits. We don't have a sense of what it takes to get there because we've only seen people in quote unquote leadership positions that are actually managers. They're not real leaders, and they've abused maybe their position. Maybe they've lorded it over us. Maybe we haven't been really great with it. Maybe we've been in one of those roles and we haven't done a great job. We didn't know what we were doing.
You see a crappy manager or leader and you're like, I could do that. I could be a crappy manager.
Yeah.
Put me in a position of leadership.
We don't know what it takes because if somebody in a management role didn't have to necessarily they didn't have to go through the things to claim that. They might have just been put there or hired there. Or just found themselves there.
Well, they had to, whatever their food chain is, whatever the ladder is for that particular position.
I don't want to make a clear comment. Clearly, there's good managers. Clearly, there's people that deserve it, that have earned it. I'm not saying that it's like a one-size-fits-all here. And this is a general idea to get a point across. In a world, though, that we think leadership should be democratized, like I should be more impactful in the world. I should be more important for the things I say and the leadership I bring forward. I could see why there's a culture of people online needing to make a case for something or position for something. I could see the reason why activism, for example, no matter what political spectrum or religious tone, like there's people that are activists for all sorts of causes. So I'm not picking on any one particular cause. I'm talking about the energy of activism itself. It almost feels like someone who has a desire for leadership to step into leading and guiding something forward. It doesn't know where to put that. But we've gotten this message in our culture, particularly Western culture, that everything should be democratized. And so it should be democratized. I should be able to be a leader. And so I step into trying to make an impact in the world, try to make an effect in the world, I want to be more than I am. And I feel like it should be right there. Mm-hmm. And it's not, because leadership can only be taken. It cannot be given. It's one of those things. I don't believe it can be democratized. I don't think it can. I think it's one of the few things you actually have to earn, like genuinely earn. You can't just get it. You can't just download an app, the leadership app. Now I'm a leader. Look, I posted my profile. Like we try that, but it doesn't work. And I think that message is messing us up. Because we don't actually know what it takes to step into leadership. We don't actually know what it takes to get a coalition of people toward a goal or a project. We don't actually know what it takes to take that leadership for ourselves. And even if we did, we might personally feel bad about it or weirdly insecure about it. And we know certainly that our peers or other people might go, oh, you don't have the right to step into that and lord it over me or assert yourself in that. And so we shrink back and we just really hope that maybe an app could solve it, or someone will tell us it's okay to step in there, or they'll put us there. All of our peers will say, you're the one that should be doing this, and prop us up. Mm-hmm. And so we want to play nice with our peers, and we want to be above reproach in every possible thing, because any day we might be put on. We might be asked to take the lead in something. And I think this is part of why we have a vacuum of leadership in our world. Is I don't think we fully, truly understand it with the new modern mindset of everything's democratized, right? Well, I don't think it is. And I think this is really messing us up as humans.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting
so
idea.
What do you think about that idea? I mean, I'm playing with it. Maybe it's a complete BS idea. I don't know.
Well, and if you think about what you just said and you go, I don't believe any of that at all, just let me know. But I actually think that you're onto a couple different things. The first one is that when everybody believes they should be a leader or an influencer or whatever they want to say, all it creates is a lot of noise and cacophony. Leadership isn't usually, well, there are kinds of leadership that are articulated, like thought leadership, etc. But actual, like, guiding people to a, pointing to direction, getting everybody together, truly guiding somebody through, or groups of people through something, that's not usually articulated. That's action. And so, and a lot of modern quote unquote action is just different iterations of articulation, right? Which is like saying things on social media, or even putting something on a video, taking an action, putting it on video and uploading it is still a form of expression or articulation. It's very different from like going, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it and let's go, which is a little bit closer to the kind of leadership you're talking about. I also think that we have availability to democratize leadership. It's just self-leadership. Mm-hmm. That's the only kind of leadership that can be democratized is self-leadership. And that's one that personally I'm very interested in. Self-leadership is extremely interesting to me. Leading other people, maybe. But self-leadership, absolutely.
When you say self-leadership, that actually resonates with me. I think that actually is something that can be democratized because it's about the self.
Right. And here's, maybe my thoughts are bottlenecking a little bit, but here's the balance of all this, or maybe the choreography of it. In order to be a truly great leader to others, one has to first self-lead. And that means that they have to do that work. They have to have leadership over self. Ship, close to shape, molding, changing.
Yeah.
And the aspect that when you get into a position of leadership, the fantasy that this is going to be all great and you're going to now be in a position of power and influence and leadership and have access to all these resources and everybody's going to think you're great. The fantasy of that for good leaders, it very quickly gets squashed, or they never believed that at all. They were, groomed to be a leader and they knew that was not part of it. Or they found themselves in positions of leadership and then they went, oh, this sucks actually in a lot of different ways. But if they're first self-leaders, then the person is tapped into what it means to be, like, to have, say, self-discipline. The ability to do things when they're hard, but do them because they're good for you. And self-control and self-management and all those other things that come along with being a leader, but doing it for the self, right? Putting your wishes aside for what's in your best interest and being willing to take the hit for something that is actually ultimately good. Going to bed early and getting up and doing stretches because that's what your body needs, as opposed to going to bed late because you just wanted to watch that next episode of whatever on Netflix. Like, these self-discipline components, which might seem small, are required for true self-leadership, which can be democratized. And if a person hasn't figured out self-leadership, it's very difficult for them to lead other people.
Yeah.
That said, if you do that, then when you get into that position of leadership, the position, not necessarily the characteristic, but when you get into that position, if you haven't figured this piece out, then you are going to use the outsized resources and you're going to siphon them because the position still sucks, right? You're still going to get the position itself is what gets all that criticism. The position itself is what has all that responsibility. But if you don't carry the characteristic of leadership in with it, first starting with the self, then you are going to start exploiting the outsized access to resource that is there because otherwise it's not worth it, right? Like, why would I do this job unless I got this outrageous salary? Why would I do this unless I got all of this attention or all of these extra privileges or all this indulgence. Like, this position sucks, so I've earned this.
Yeah.
If a person is a true self-leader and they started with that, the thing that I agree can be democratized, if you start with that, then when you find yourself in those positions, but you bring the characteristic of leadership to it, you knew all that was coming because you already felt all of it. You already felt like that it sucks to have to put yourself aside for a bigger thing. But just like when you did it for yourself, there were all these rewards of like, yeah, but it all works out. I'm a better person. Now I'm the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. This is what I should be doing. This feels like more me. You can bring that characteristic into the position because you have the characteristic of leadership, and now purpose is enough. And now you don't try to exploit the riches and the resources. You're not trying to make it balance out because it never will. There isn't enough resource out there to balance out how much it sucks to be in a high position of leadership. So that's one of the reasons why I think we see such a vacuum of it. And I think it can be democratized. It's just, I think what we've democratized is the idea that I should be leading others. But most people are not qualified for that. We have to lead self first. And then when we get good at that, then maybe we'll think about it for other people.
Yeah. I think it's a parent that taught me that early on, that I can't ask my kids to do stuff that I can't figure out how to do for myself. And setting the example is so important in how I behave and all the unspoken messages that you're sending to people that you have to do for yourself. And I think that's that concept of, you want to change the world, make your bed in the morning, like clean up your room, make sure your bills are paid and you are on a schedule and you're taking care of your health and like all the basics. Lead yourself through all of those things. Not when I say pay the bills, I mean, obviously if you're struggling, find the resource you need to do to live a life that's good, whatever that means.
Well, that's that is part of self-leadership though, is making sure that you have access to the resources you need.
Yeah. And it's getting serious about leading the self toward something greater.